Hey, gang, and welcome to another episode of Try Not to Curse. Elizabeth Marvel here with you. Joining me today is a friend of both myself and producer Mike. My buddy Spencer is here. He went to high school with us. He has a mushroom, what are we calling it? Is it mushroom growing company, mushroom manufacturing company? What are we calling it?
So it's technically a gourmet mushroom farm.
Okay.
Indoors, so it's technically an urban farm. Yep.
Okay. So we're going to get into all of that. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, not a big fan of mushrooms, but there's like a million varieties. So maybe I'm just ignorant. Maybe I just haven't tried them all. Maybe a little bit of both. Let's be honest. But let's backtrack. So you have a degree in biology?
Biochemistry.
Biochemistry. Okay.
Yep.
Move that just a little closer to you. And how did that, well, first, how did you get to that point? Because that's not what you intended to, the field you intended to go into initially, right? Or yes?
Biochemistry, you're
Yeah.
saying? So when I first went to college after high school, I went into engineering.
Okay.
Really main reason being good at math and science, so it just seemed like a natural kind of course to take.
Sure.
But kind of quickly realized after that at the time, I really wasn't in a place to dedicate myself to that kind of academia.
Okay.
In the sense that, right out of high school, it's a lot of work to go into, and I really kind of wasn't prepared for that. So I ended up taking a hiatus from college at one point and then going back, and that's when I went with different intentions and different motivation and was able to kind of tackle things at a more mature level, if you will.
Okay. So I remember when you were going to school, you were like, because we were friends on Snapchat and stuff, and you were like doing stuff with like scorpions and UV light and weird bugs and shit. And I'm like, what is this guy doing over there?
Yeah, that was actually more of a hobby that kind of...
That's an interesting hobby. Okay.
It's really...
How did we get into that?
It happened over COVID. A lot of things happened over COVID. What happens over COVID we don't talk about. Yeah. No, it was, just kind of one of those. I've always really been interested in biology.
Okay.
And it's kind of an organism that takes up very little space, and it's unusual and has these incredible adaptations that it's evolved to. And one thing led to another. I started with 3 and ended up with 200 at one point. And yeah, the varying degrees of venom, potency. But yeah, there were some in there that could kill you.
Yeah, well, yeah, dude.
yeah, they were. But no, that actually, that lasted about a year or two. And at one point when I was a teacher, I actually had my students raise baby scorpions.
Oh my God.
As part of the entomology curriculum.
Okay, what age group was that?
High school kids. Yep.
And their parents are like, what are you doing?
Well, at first they were hesitant. They were like, you better not be bringing those home.
Right.
But the ones that, I had them raised were basically harmless.
Okay.
It wouldn't even hurt as much as a bee sting if they stung you.
Okay.
But yeah, the kids absolutely loved it.
I bet.
Yeah. So, I would have them feed them, crickets and stuff at the beginning of class. And, we would kind of take care of their little environments, their little homes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a cool experience.
Way cooler than a hamster or a fish tank, for sure.
I mean, I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you get this degree in biology? No.
Biochemistry.
Biochemistry.
Yep.
I don't know why I can't get that in my head.
I have a minor in biology, but
okay.
No one really cares about that.
I mean, I care.
Yeah.
But you also take hikes. You're out in the woods a lot. You're sharing foraging of, I found this mushroom, I found that mushroom, which again, I'm completely ignorant of. So like everybody's talking about like, oh, it's the chicken of the woods or whatever.
You got the name right at least.
And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, how does everyone know what this is? But so now you've got this business that you've turned this into. Yeah. How did give me the story on that?
Okay, so so with the hiking and stuff, that's always been kind of a crucial part of my life. Growing up in the woods of Connecticut, it's kind of, especially my parents' driveway. My parents' driveway is half a mile long, up a mountain. There's no neighborhood kids. So, as a kid, I was very jealous of, all my friends who grew up in neighborhoods who, after school, they would have a pickup baseball game and,
yeah,
all that fun stuff. And I was like, well, all right, well, I'm just going to wander around the woods, I guess. So that's kind of what I did. And I didn't really appreciate it then. But once I got to kind of my, mid-20s, I'd say, that's when I really started appreciating my upbringing in that sense. just the appreciation that I've developed for, the natural world and kind of what's outside. But about 5 years ago, I was, walking on my parents' property and saw a reishi mushroom. So these are just kind of big fan-like, red and brown and kind of gold coloring. Purely medicinal. You can't eat them. They're too tough. But I hadn't really seen anything like that. I'm sure I had before, but mushrooms, at least for me, were always kind of like a garnish on the main dish. They were
sure.
there, but
Yeah.
I never really paid much attention to them.
Sure.
So, that one kind of struck a chord with me. I started looking into it and realizing, oh, they're pretty common. And I found this on my parents' property. There must be more. So I, kind of dove into that a little bit. And also over, quarantine with COVID, I got some of those, grow your own mushroom kits. You do it right on your kitchen counter. And, with minimal success, those, you don't typically generate anything outstanding from those kits, but it's a cool process to watch. And then from there, that's really where the itch really started.
Okay.
And it's kind of just progressed ever since. But even just the foraging aspect, there's so much tasty stuff out in the woods, but you do have to be careful.
Yeah.
Really careful.
Yeah.
The first year that I actually started foraging, I didn't eat anything. I just spent the first year just learning how to identify, accumulating resources and books to kind of cross-reference, because you should never really use just one, resource to identify
Sure.
something. You should use kind of multiple. And then, there are also these Facebook groups that are really helpful, too, that you can post pictures to. But then after that, that's when I, started really eating everything I could out there. But of course, the knowledge of how to identify them, because there are some that are extremely easy to tell. Like morels and chicken of the woods. They don't really look like much else.
Okay.
But there are some that do have some lookalikes that could be a little hazardous or cause gastric distress. And then once I actually started growing gourmet mushrooms, that's when I started actually doing this thing. It's called bioprospecting. So you go out into the woods and you find these edible or medicinal mushrooms, and then you take them home and you take a tissue sample, and you all under sterile conditions. You put it onto an agar plate, which is a nutrient gel. And you put it on there, and it'll actually kind of grow out mycelium. And from there, you can take that and actually transplant it into these kind of grow bags that I currently use, and actually grow out these mushrooms that you found in the woods at home. So I have a couple varieties that actually came from the local woods around here that I've cloned and then grown out and are now available to eat.
And at what point did you say, this could be a viable business? And because I've certainly never heard of anyone specify, specifically in the mushroom game, just setting up shop and being like, hey, so how did that conversation happen?
It's not super common yet.
Yeah.
So it was about almost exactly a year ago that I decided to do this as a business. I was working as an industrial chemist, working with some pretty hazardous chemicals on a daily basis, and kind of had this kind of epiphany moment of what am I doing? I'm working with this stuff that I have to wear a respirator around. I'm exposing myself to these chemicals that are, have a laundry list of health problems that can be associated with them. If it really came down to it, and I had to do something, and money really wasn't the primary factor, what would it be? So I kind of, thought on it a little bit, and this is kind of what I don't want to say stumbled upon, but settled upon.
Yeah.
And, I've kind of had my finger on the pulse of this kind of mushroom renaissance that's been happening a bit.
I guess so.
Kind of following it, and it's only increasing in demand as food, but also in the medicinal field as well. Almost exactly a year ago, it was about mid-March last year, that I decided to take the leap. And then 2 weeks after that is when I left the job, my chemistry job, and then really just devoted full time to this and really dove in, learned the processes of, their growing requirements, and because each strain has its own specific set of parameters that it takes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it took me a while to kind of, learn each one intimately. And so I've gotten, last November is when I first started selling them. And that's when I was confident enough in my abilities, and the product was consistent. And that's I've just haven't looked back since. Like, I fully dove into it.
Yeah.
And I think it was maybe a month after I decided to start, going down this path to start the business. Well, found out my girlfriend was pregnant. So it's like, okay, well, that kind of lit a fire under me a little bit more. Like,
Sure.
okay, well, I'm really going to have to buckle down and, do this. And because it's not only me at this point, more depending on it. But yeah, it's been a beautiful progression, but also extremely stressful.
Yeah. Well, you said you're crazy busy right now. Like, it's just blown up in leaps and bounds. Are you doing all of this out of your house? Like, do you have a shop? Do you
At
have
the moment I am.
Wow. And how's that like? Is it like just taking over your place?
Quite literally.
Yeah.
I could show you pictures of it, but it's it started as one kind of little 4x4 grow tent.
Yeah.
In my apartment that I live in, and has progressed to 2 of those and then 2 5x10 ones. So that, on top of, starting a business and starting a family simultaneously, it's an endeavor.
Yeah.
So that, with all the baby stuff, we've learned to, one lesson that I can say is that it has granted me the ability to learn how to maximize and optimize very little space. So it's really kind of this ongoing game of Tetris.
Sure.
In the house, of, how can I move this stuff around so that we can still live here. But the thing is, we hadn't originally planned on staying at, this apartment for this long. My girlfriend's parents are kind of redoing this house, and it's taking just a little bit longer than we had planned. And this business is also growing a lot faster than I expected.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, at this moment, I'm supposed to be moving into a new facility really at the end of the month or beginning of May. But it's kind of this, maximizing this little amount of space and growing the business as much as I can in it, while also we're living there. So I feel like it's kind of reaching this like crescendo of stress right now, where like it's just so stressful. Every day is like, they say, small business owners, they don't really have that separation between work and home life. Well, I literally don't have it.
Right.
I mean, there are days that I don't go outside
because
I'm just so absorbed in what I'm doing and what I have to do and what I have to get done. So I'm really looking forward to, one, moving the business out, and us moving out to our house.
I bet, yeah.
Yeah.
I bet your girlfriend's excited too.
Oh, you have no idea. You have no idea. But she's constantly saying like, oh yeah, I've got all these bruises on my hips from all the things that I'm bumping into in the house. And it's like, we're doing the best we can.
Right.
But,
Now, what does she do?
she's a teacher.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
well, I was going to say, so she's not bringing her work home with her, but she is. She's got papers to grade and things like that.
Yeah, in some regards, for sure.
Yeah.
But, this is a whole different level. I did not anticipate this.
Yeah.
But, we're doing the best we can.
So, again, how did we get here? So, when you first started with the mushroom kits and really got into it and said, oh, there's more out here, there's more things that I can do, I can expand on this. I mean, it started with word of mouth, right? Like, you were just kind of posting and just saying, hey, I've got these? Or were you going to businesses and saying, are you interested?
You're saying when I first started selling as Oracle Mushroom Company.
Yeah.
So first one I did was I approached New Morning Market in Woodbury. I had kind of heard from somebody that would be a good place to approach, and so I did, and they were very receptive to it. And they've been my original client and still a client now. But from there, I actually started having other businesses approach me. I've approached actually very few businesses at this point. And honestly, the article that came out in Litchfield Magazine, like that really kind
ruined your life.
I mean, yeah, in some ways, but at the same time, like it's skyrocketed the demand.
Yeah.
And just the reach that I was able to have, because I've really only been able to advertise via social media, like Instagram or my personal account on there, and as I built up my business account on Facebook and stuff, and so I had kind of a limited reach in that sense.
Sure.
But then, yeah, I think New Morning Market had made a post about they were carrying my mushrooms, and that's how Litchfield Magazine heard about it, and then they approached me, and then they came to my place and did an interview, and yeah, beautiful piece that she wrote. I really appreciate it. But since then, I've virtually not approached anyone.
Yeah.
I've had people just being like, hey, like our restaurant would love to work with you. And so right now, kind of the main clientele I have are restaurants, which I did not anticipate.
Sure.
I really anticipate more private sales and markets, honestly. From what I had kind of heard prior to this, restaurants were kind of hit or miss in the sense that a lot of the time they can be kind of seasonal, and they might offer something that's like a special, but then a few weeks later it might change.
Yeah.
But right now they have been the most consistent by far.
That's awesome.
Even just Sparrow right down the road from here, they get 30 pounds a week from me.
Wild.
Yeah.
And how long does it take to grow?
So it depends from where you're starting. So, say from like the agar plate, that nutrient gel, if that just has, mycelium on it, that would take from start to finish about 6 to 7 weeks.
Okay.
But what I do with that is I take it and I add it to these bags of grain. And then it grows out or colonizes these bags of grain. And once that's fully colonized, I break up the bag and then I sprinkle it into these other substrate bags that are made of hardwood pellets and soy hull pellets and water. And that's what you put into the grow tent once it's colonized.
Okay.
And that process is about 4 weeks once you add it to that. And that's typically where I'm starting from when I'm starting these out, because I'll colonize these grain bags and put them in the fridge and just let them sit for a while. And I don't need to use them right away, but it's a lot easier when you kind of build a stockpile like that.
Well, I was going to say you've got to build a stockpile, and you're constantly cycling them out. I mean, if you're doing 30 pounds a week just for one business,
Yeah.
and you've got multiple clients.
Yeah.
You just must be going nonstop. Like, I can't believe you sat down to have this interview with me, because holy shit, you need to be colonizing.
So yeah,
whatever.
what my girlfriend and I are doing today is literally just inoculating those substrate blocks. We're going to do 120 later today, where I have to sprinkle them in front of like this fan filter unit or a flow hood that blows filtered air, because bacteria or contamination is really the biggest bugaboo, if you will.
Sure, yeah.
With this stuff, it's the thing that'll mess everything up. So everything has to be very clean, very sterile. But yeah, we're probably going to spend the rest of the day just doing that. And right now it's, her and I actually brought on one employee who's doing a lot of the making of the bags.
Nice.
Because that was kind of my bottleneck for a while. I couldn't make the bags fast enough in my apartment to inoculate them and grow them out. So now I've got him doing that at his house. He built a steamer, and he's got the whole setup there where he does like 40 bags at a clip, and it's great. That took so much stress off.
Yeah.
Because before I was just using these pressure cookers, which are virtually these bombs that you just put on your stove, and you have to kind of babysit them for 2.5 hours at a clip, and at that point, just to produce enough, I was running them 12 hours a day. And, there was very little that I could even do outside of that. So now I've kind of, delegated that to somebody else, and immediately doubling production now because of that.
How many different types of mushrooms are you growing?
So it ranges from anywhere from like 5 to like 12.
Okay.
I plan on growing more too, but that's going to be that I'm going to dive into that a bit more once I get into a bigger space.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm just kind of growing the top sellers, the biggest producing ones, just to really kind of sustain the where the business is set up at the moment.
Sure.
But once I can actually do bigger production in a larger space, then yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit, really.
Yeah. Well, so you're talking about potentially moving to another facility. So how much bigger is that space? Like what kind of aside from just getting out of your girlfriend's hair
Yeah.
and out of the place where you live, what kind of, freedoms or possibilities does that open up for you going into this bigger space?
So right now my whole apartment is 1,000 square feet, and I'd say half of that is used for strictly the business.
God bless. Because I'm in 1,000 square feet right now, and I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
But the new place is 2,000 square feet, and it's all going to be allocated towards the business. So it allows me to do bigger grow rooms, to really kind of section off different areas for, say, a lab or a colonizing room, and then multiple bigger grow rooms, and even potentially kind of like a storefront, where people can kind of come and just buy directly from me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot, especially considering like when I'm predicted to move in, is about when the farmers markets start up. And
Okay.
I'm doing the Kent Farmers Market and the New Milford Farmers Market.
Yeah.
So that already is doubling the current demand that I have.
Yeah.
So I have to do that while I'm in the apartment still. It's a lot. It's very stressful, and
Yeah.
but again, it's good stress, and I think we are kind of reaching that kind of maximum stress point, and then once either we move out or I move into the other facility, it's going to alleviate some of the walls are literally closing in on us at the place, and
Right.
you feel it. You feel
Right.
it every day.
Yeah.
But yeah, once I'm able to kind of spread out a bit more, I think it's going to take some of that stress off.
And your kid's not going to be a newborn forever either.
No,
So.
no. So that's the thing. Like right now, it's kind of that planted pot stage or potted plant, yeah. Where he's not mobile yet. He just turned 4 months, and so it's working now. And I watch him
Right.
every day until 4:30 till she gets home.
Yeah.
So not only am I doing all of this work for the business, I also have to watch him every day. But it's working for us, and just the amount that we're saving on childcare.
Oh, sure,
is amazing.
Yeah.
But it's great because the first half of the day he basically sleeps. Like he sleeps through the night. It's been great so far. I'm sure teething is gonna change things a little bit.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, he sleeps 8, 9, 10 hours at a clip.
Nice.
Yeah. So then, she pretty much kind of takes over when she gets home, and that's when I can really kind of focus on everything. But yeah, my work day is typically from like 8 in the morning till 10 at night. So
Wow.
I'm making it work.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about the growing pains of starting a business. Because, I mean, we're not talking about like jewelry or bumper stickers. Like this is a food product, which I imagine is super regulated. You've got to go through a lot of inspections. You've got to,
Not as much as you'd think.
Okay. Well, I don't know if that's.
No.
Wait a minute.
So it's kind of like cucumbers. I'd say if someone wanted to go to like a farmer's market and sell cucumbers, you can, as long as you're not really adding anything dangerous to it, and you have some type of insurance to kind of cover you. It's not super regulated. However, once you start processing stuff, that's where the different licenses and certifications come into play.
Okay.
For instance, like I started like dehydrating some of the mushrooms, like the excess that I had, and then start selling it to one of the local businesses around here, and then found out that in order to do that, I have to have a food manufacturing and processing license. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, well, looks like I'm taking that back because I don't currently have a commercial kitchen to do that.
Right.
But that is highly regulated. But yeah, the actual just growing of mushrooms, yeah, it's as long as you have like general liability insurance,
Okay.
and I'm an LLC, so I do have insurance coverage and stuff like that. But no, I mean it's been really cool. I don't know, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
But yeah, it is different than say like printing out stickers and like selling those, or bumper stickers, kind of like you
Yeah.
said. It's just learning the process was very time consuming, a lot of trial and error. I can see how like a lot of people would get frustrated with it and abandon it.
Sure.
But luckily I do have that kind of science background where, well, most of your experimentation is not fruitful. A lot of it you you fail more than you succeed
Yeah.
typically in
A lot of
science.
trial and error. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm kind of used to that, and luckily, again, with I have the skill set to troubleshoot a lot of stuff, and there are a lot of good resources out there to kind of help you. But yeah, it's been going great. Honestly, the demand doubles virtually every week,
That's wild.
which it's awesome.
Yeah.
But it's a good problem to have, but still a problem.
Yeah. Because
yeah.
now on top of it, like you said, you're working the business every day, growing and getting all that stuff prepared, but you have to make these deliveries too. Or are they coming to you? I don't know.
I wish. So pretty much 1 or 2 days a week I'll deliver, kind of in the radius, do like Woodbury and then New Milford and then up to Kent. And I was actually just talking with my girlfriend the other day about how, I'm pretty much almost going to have to bring someone on just to do deliveries at one point.
Yeah.
Because that takes hours out of my day that I could be spending doing other stuff.
Yeah. It's wild though.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Well, so I was going to ask you about this. So you touched on the dehydration a little bit. So again, everything that you're delivering is fresh. Like you're cutting it that day and packaging it up and sending it out.
Not all that day. I mean,
Okay.
a good amount of it will be cut that day. But I can also kind of harvest it and then put it into refrigeration and kind of keep it fresh that way.
Yeah. But again, you don't have the space to have a bunch of different refrigerators lying around.
So funny story. So at first, I was, when I first started the business, I was just using my personal refrigerator in the apartment, and that quickly became not enough. Yeah. So I bought another one for $100 on Marketplace and started using that, and that quickly became not enough. So just a few weeks ago, I ended up buying a big Pepsi 2-door glass window kind of sliding thing. 400 pounds. We're lugging, me, my employee, and my father. We're lugging that up the stairs. It was a nightmare. I can only imagine what my neighbors are thinking.
Well, and what is your landlord thinking? Is your like, what the fuck?
I mean, he knows like kind of what I'm doing. I don't think I don't think he realizes the magnitude at which I'm doing it now. Yeah. But yeah, no, he's fine with it.
That's good.
But I can only imagine what the neighbors are thinking as I'm, carrying up this huge Pepsi fridge up, up this, I don't know.
Right.
But it's wild though. But yeah, it does allow me to kind of, but that I think is also going to not be enough very soon.
Sure.
So once I move into this, into the shop or our facility, pretty much going to have to build a walk-in cooler.
Yeah.
To, hold on to this because it's just not practical to deliver every day that you harvest.
Absolutely.
And unless I brought somebody on full time for that. But not everybody wants stuff delivered, they want it on Thursday or Friday or something, not on a Monday or Tuesday.
Right.
So that does allow me to kind of hold on to it for a little bit. But yeah, it's all fresh.
Well, so let's talk about the new space. What so again, walk-in fridge, what are you looking to do? What are you, having this new facility? So are you going to get a commercial kitchen? Are you going, you know what I mean? Like, are you going to be doing packaging there as well? Like, what's the dream scenario for this space?
So this space is still viewed as kind of a temporary space.
Okay.
It's going to...
Like a transitional space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm really trying to do as little packaging as possible.
That's fair.
Yeah, it just increases labor, and two, once you package something, it's...
Well, and it's got to be food grade, and they've got all those regulations, yeah.
Yeah, so most of the distribution that I'm doing, again, is to restaurants, so they don't care. They don't give a shit about packaging. The market, at least, that in Woodbury, everything is loose there, so that's nice. But the facility is really kind of just an open floor plan, industrial. You could have almost like a mechanic shop in there kind of thing, a machine shop. You really just need the open floor plan so that you can kind of tailor the space to whatever you want and be able to change it as you need it. But yeah, just the ability to produce there is going to skyrocket. It's going to be exponential. So yeah, we're producing, I think, about 50 pounds a week right now, and I'm expecting in about 6 months to a year going to be up to about 300 pounds a week.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it's a lot. But I mean, I'm also realizing that, this is something that I can't do on my own. So that's why I had to bring on an employee. And I have another employee, Kelly, our mutual friend. She's helping with, bookkeeping, but also kind of the more behind the scenes kind of stuff, even just certifications and licenses that I need to get, and really just helping with the stuff that I want nothing to do with.
Yeah, well, because she used to own a business, so
Yeah.
So it's good to have that resource in her.
Oh, for sure.
You know what? I got to get her in here. Hey, I'm happy to help with deliveries. I have 3 days off a week, so let
all
me
right.
know. We can work it out. I love driving around.
Yeah.
But so, where was I just going? Oh, I lost it. Total brain fart. Oh my gosh, this happens. I apologize.
No worries. No worries.
So, what's the biggest expense? I would imagine it's electricity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, heating and cooling.
Bottom line.
Really,
because the temperature has to be very specific. You've got to keep it consistent.
Yeah, I mean there is a range, but
Yeah.
it does have to be kind of climate controlled. So
Yeah. At least in the initial growing stage, right?
Yeah. So the idea being that you kind of want to keep it between 60 and 70 degrees. Which in the winter it's a little, you're combating the cold, and then summer you're combating the warmth. But what some mushroom farms do in order to kind of combat these expenses in, say, like the winter or the summer, is they grow kind of seasonal species. So in the summer, they'll grow ones that are more tailored and tolerant of higher temperatures.
Okay.
And then winter, they'll grow ones that thrive better in cooler temperatures.
Okay, that makes sense.
Ideally, I'd love to grow both year round.
Well, I was going to say, like, I figured since you're in your place, you've got the control settings. I was going to say, oh, that's
Yeah.
cool because you can do it all year round. But like you said, it's not as cost effective if you're doing it that way.
No.
Fighting against the weather.
And with 1,000 square feet in an apartment, I can really fine tune that temperature pretty well.
Right.
I can do all species year round.
Right.
But once I move into a 2,000 square foot space with 14-foot ceilings, it becomes a little bit trickier.
Yeah.
So we're looking at different options, just how to tackle the, saving the heat or keeping the cooling in while exchanging air with the outside almost constantly. So it does present some dilemmas, but this guy that I brought on, my employee, he's excellent with this kind of stuff. He's virtually he's a chemist also, actually.
Okay.
I actually met him at my last chemistry job.
Nice.
But yeah, he's pretty much like engineering stuff for me as well. So he's a great asset to have, especially in this transitional stage.
Yeah. And have you been to other mushroom farms?
So I haven't actually.
Okay.
However, me and my employee Joel and Kelly are actually heading down to this mushroom farm in Tennessee.
Okay.
In June. For like a mentorship kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's something that they kind of offer to, these kind of startup mushroom farms. So you can kind of come and, because they really started from nothing. They started out of their basement, but they are a huge mushroom company now. So the idea is that, you can go there and you can see how they're doing it and how they've transitioned and how they, have handled their finances and utilities and all of that stuff through their transitional stages. And thus, saving you so much time and tens of thousands of dollars in just trial and error and troubleshooting stuff.
Yeah.
Which you can do, but you have to realize it's going to cost you a lot kind of in the end, and it's going to take a long time to kind of do. No,
but that's a great opportunity to kind of just pick their brain and see, like you said, the trials and tribulations, like what worked for you, what didn't work for you, and then adapt it to your needs and what you want to do and your hopes for the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how big do we want to get this thing? I mean, you didn't expect to be here as it is.
Not a year after. It's grown a lot faster than I was expecting. Because when I first started, I knew that there was a demand for this.
Sure.
And I knew that restaurants would, really kind of enthusiastically jump on board, but I had no idea the quantity, the volume that they would require. And I didn't know if it would be 5 pounds, 50 pounds, who knew? Yeah. But at this point, I'm realizing it's higher than I thought it was, and there's more businesses than I thought that are actually interested. So it's growing very fast. And one of the things that I kind of, discuss with my girlfriend often and constantly reiterating to people is that even these kind of milestones that I'm reaching, I rarely get to actually enjoy. So even like the article and stuff that came out in Litchfield Magazine, like I don't get to kind of sit back and just enjoy this kind of point, this peak of the mountain that I kind of reached, even though it's a small mountain. Just being able to really enjoy it, because as soon as these kind of awesome things happen, I immediately have to scale up more because the demand increases.
Yeah.
So I get to enjoy it for like a day or two, and then I immediately have to double production.
Yeah.
And I've had to do that probably a dozen times so far.
Yeah.
And right now I've got these, kind of special dinner events that are coming up at some of these restaurants that are literally just about my mushrooms. Like every dish is a mushroom dish. And then with the farmers markets, it's a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm really enjoying it. I'm trying to
Well, again, it's early days.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, 20 years from now.
Yeah.
When you're all dialed in, you've got a production going, you've got the staffing, you've established, then you can sit back and take some time for yourself. But it's not going to happen today.
No. It's not going to happen for a while. I'm hoping that once I get into the facility, I'll be able to kind of breathe a little bit more.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
But no, the grand scheme of the growth for the business, I definitely plan on at some point, probably like a 5-year plan, getting some land and building the actual facility that I would like.
Yeah.
And tailoring it kind of to the necessities of the business.
Are there any other mushroom farms in the area? Like anybody around here?
I mean, there's one up in Litchfield.
Okay.
And then there's one in like Prospect, Connecticut. There's one in like Westchester, New York. But right now, there's about a half hour to 45-minute radius around New Milford where there's nothing.
Yeah.
So not only have I, dove into this because I wanted to and, just had a kid, and but there was also kind of a sense of urgency to kind of plant my roots as quickly as I could.
Yeah.
So that I'm kind of the first in the area.
Yeah.
Because I figure it'll be a lot easier to survive as, the first instead of coming into a competitive market.
Sure, absolutely.
So that's really what I've been doing, is kind of just planting my roots here, if you will.
Yeah.
Kind of securing even just the awareness that I'm here. Because again, it'll be a lot harder once there's more, but they are popping up more and more, and I definitely anticipate more popping up in that radius.
That's so wild to me. Like, because again, I'm not a fan of mushrooms, as I've mentioned. No offense.
Yeah.
But
they're
like,
not for everybody.
But for it to like take on like what I always equate to as like the brewery like every town
Very
now
similar kind
has
to
a
that.
brewery, right? Or
Yeah,
multiple breweries. So that's just so interesting, like this like really niche market, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, like yeah, we can do this, and I bespoke mushrooms, or however you want to. I fucking hate that word, by the way. It's the worst word, but it's just so fascinating. So once you get to a bigger facility and you start to pick up even more momentum, are you just sticking with like local species of mushroom, or do you want to like branch out? Do you want to like look into like really rare heirloom mushrooms? I don't know if there's such a thing as heirloom mushrooms, but you know what I mean? Like,
so
how crazy are we going to get
that
here?
I grow, I wouldn't necessarily consider local species. Some are, because I went out and literally pulled them from the local forest. But yeah, some you can find around here, like lion's mane you can find in Connecticut. It's pretty rare in Connecticut. It's a little bit more common the further north you go.
I always see people on Facebook talking about morels. Like morels is like the big, like,
So,
what's the deal with morels? Why are they like so incredible?
So they're extremely tasty. They're very meaty. But the thing that makes them so highly sought after is that they only come out for like 2 to 3 weeks out of the year.
Oh, okay.
So you have to like time it perfectly. You can actually, there's this website, I think it's called like the Great Morel or something. And there's actually like an interactive map that you can actually follow there, popping up like across the country. So once you kind of see that they're popping up in the area, well, then you kind of know to kind of go out and start looking for them.
I had no idea this was such a thing.
Yeah, it really is. And it's only becoming more and more popular.
That's wild.
But the really kind of the allure with these mushroom farms is that you can produce a lot in a very small amount of space.
Right.
So as I've kind of told you, like I'm really working with like 500 square feet, and I'm currently doing 50 up to almost, I could probably do about 100 pounds out of, the 500 square
Jeez
feet.
Louise.
But, when it comes to, say, tomatoes, you need land, you need substantially more space than what I'm working with.
Yeah.
And also just how quickly they grow also is, appealing because, from start to finish, you're less than a couple months. So you can really just stagger them like every week, and you just have mushrooms producing every week, and you don't. And since it's indoor, it's also not weather dependent or seasonal.
Right.
A lot of these farmers, are strictly dependent on, well, what's the environment doing, and is it too cold, and they have to, make it through these hard seasons like winter without really any production.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't have those same limitations.
Yeah.
I can just produce these year round.
So do we want to get into like medicinal stuff at some point, or are we we're going to stick mainly to the edible varieties, or, again, like I mean, it sounds like the sky's the limit here with this stuff.
Yeah. So it's hard to kind of almost separate the just edible and medicinal aspects of it, just because like at least all of the mushrooms that I grow are extremely medicinal and have incredibly nutrient dense. So for instance, lion's mane is, it boosts your immune system, helps with your gut health, has anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory properties, helps with neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, stuff like that.
Holy
dementia.
Shit.
Yeah.
I need to get into mushrooms.
And that's just one.
Yeah.
And there's a whole laundry list of more things that it does, but like I don't have them all memorized.
Sure, that's fair.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
But then each species kind of has their own kind of laundry list of, medicinal qualities that they have. So again, it's kind of hard to separate them in that sense because really they are edible but also medicinal. But then there are ones that are strictly medicinal.
Right.
So like your rishis, reishi, turkey tails, some other ones that you can't really eat because they're just too tough.
Sure.
But I mean, they have extremely high anti-cancer and anti-tumor properties. They're incredible for you. But you don't eat them. You would typically make like a tea with them or a tincture. But with my background in chemistry and my employees, Joel's background in chemistry, we're definitely going to be making tinctures at some point.
Okay.
But that is going to require a commercial kitchen. I don't think we're going to build one.
Not in this space.
And not in this space
Yeah.
that we're moving into, but you can rent them. So I think we're going to plan on doing that at least.
And what is the tincture?
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 So it's you pretty much extract the medicinal compounds out of the mushrooms using like heat and alcohol.
Okay.
And then it kind of pulls them out, and then you can also do it with hot water as well. And then you can combine those two. It's called the dual extraction, and it's pretty much a water alcohol mixture, usually around 30%, 40% alcohol.
Okay.
But you just have it in a dropper bottle, and you do like one dropper full a day or something like that. And that's just kind of how you would administer it. Or you can use them in soups. Oftentimes when I make like pho or ramen, I'll throw mushrooms in there when I'm making the broth, the medicinal ones at least, and incorporate them into it. So not only is it just a nutrient-dense meal, but it's extremely nutrient-dense now that I added the mushrooms into it.
Okay.
But yeah,
What about capsules, like dehydrating and getting them in capsule form, or no? That's not the same.
Some people do that, and by some people I mean some farms do that. Some farms do that, but you don't get as much out of the capsules as you do by the other extraction methods. Granted, you're getting more than you would if you just weren't ingesting them at all.
Sure.
But yeah, the tinctures or teas are really kind of, it's a higher potency, really. But if you just wanted some and, that you didn't really want to taste anything, you could just do capsules, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And dehydrate and just put them in that, yeah.
And Mike had said something to you before we started about kombucha.
Oh yeah, kombucha.
Are you going to are you going to look into kombucha, or because you're drinking it right now? Like,
yeah.
Obviously,
no,
you're a fan.
I love it.
Yeah.
So Yes.
Is the short answer.
Yes. It is something that we have looked into a little bit. That's definitely 5 years out at least. But the idea being that kombucha also has kind of been riding this wave of popularity for the past 10 years
You
at
can
least.
get it at Target now.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I think we might have gotten this one at Target. I don't know. But yeah, the idea being that it is also extremely nutrient dense. Fermented food, so it does require a lot of regulation and stuff like that. But one thing that the base for kombucha is black tea typically,
Okay.
or some type of tea, and you combine it with sugar and it ferments and makes the kombucha. So what you can actually do is just make the kombucha with mushroom tea at that point. You add mushrooms to your initial tea stock, and now you have not only a super nutrient dense kombucha, but a super nutrient dense kombucha that has medicinal qualities of mushrooms as well.
Okay.
Which makes it even more unique. And while I was reading into this, the way to kind of survive with these in the kombucha field right now, since it's so highly competitive, is you really have to offer something unique.
I was going to say the farmers markets are going to lose their shit when you start getting into that.
Absolutely.
Holy crap.
Yeah. But the great thing about kombucha too is that it's more easily marketable and easier to distribute. So one of the main reasons that people don't have a lot of exposure to, say, the mushrooms that I grow is because they don't really have a super long shelf life and they don't travel super well. So the main way that people will have access to lion's mane or access to these kind of gourmet varieties is you have to have kind of a mushroom farm in close proximity to where you're shopping.
Right.
Whereas this, like kombucha, you could ship across the country, no problem. It travels perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a branching out kind of aspect that we're thinking about eventually. I have a buddy of mine who's been making kombucha for years, and he's very interested in maybe eventually partnering up with that. But that's going to be down the road because that's years of regulatory black tape or red tape that you have to kind of go through, and it's a lot of funding that you would have to kind of get just to start a kombucha brewery.
Sure.
But the mushroom kombucha would make it even more marketable and even more unique, and I think we would have no problem selling it.
And you got to start thinking about merch.
Oh, yeah.
You got to start thinking about merch. You need tote bags at the farmer's market.
Shirts, hats.
Hats for sure. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's
koozies for your kombucha.
right. No, it's definitely on the list. And that again is something that.
But isn't that so exciting?
It is.
Isn't that really cool to like sit back and like just the sky's the limit, just dream?
It is, but I don't often get a lot of that time to sit back.
Right.
Yeah, it is cool, but like once I start thinking about it, not only is it kind of cool to think about it, but it just adds a different stress level now too.
Well, and like you said, once you get your transitional space.
Yeah.
And you can free up some headspace to think bigger and to think in those terms. It'll be better.
Because I mean, I've already looked into like hats and stuff, and it's like, if you want these hats, you have to order like a minimum of 48 at a time, and I'm like, okay, all right, I'm gonna put that on hold for the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's definitely cool. I can't wait to do sweatshirts.
Maybe not
baby onesies.
Maybe not tote bags, because I feel like everyone is sick to death of tote bags. But
I always forget my tote bags.
But
everywhere.
but like paper bags. Like paper bags, you can put the thing on the paper bags.
Yeah. No, I mean there's definitely a lot of avenues that we're considering in that sense.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting.
But I feel like you're in a place right now where you're like maybe you don't even want to be on this podcast right now because maybe you're like, can everyone stop talking about my business? Because I can't. I just can't.
Well, it's gotten to the point where I can't approach any more businesses.
Yeah.
Like I just can't because I'm still trying to scale up
just to keep up
to the demand.
Yeah.
And it's constantly increasing because they'll be like, oh yeah, like I'll start with 10 pounds and then quickly it's like, well, 20 pounds. It's like, can you do 30 pounds a week?
Yeah.
And it's like, and then once it warms up, they were like, well, this is what we want now. But once it warms up, we're going to become busier, so we're going to need more.
Yeah.
And then with the farmers markets, I mean, everyone I've talked to in regards to that are like, you're going to sell out in the first
People love
hour
a
or two.
farmers market.
Yeah.
Oh my
so
God.
I'm willing to bet the first like month or two, we're going to be leaving after the first couple hours because we're going to be all out.
Yeah.
Again, a good problem to have, but still a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's. But yeah, I'm pretty much just bringing people on at this point because I just need
But
more
that's
hands.
awesome.
Yeah,
That's so
I did
exciting.
not anticipate like hiring anyone.
Again,
at this
happy to
point.
help if you need a delivery
Yeah,
driver
yeah.
here or there.
I might take you up on that.
I'm
for
telling
sure.
you, not a problem.
Yeah,
That's wild.
it's cool.
So it's Oracle Mushroom Company?
Yep.
Man.
Based out of New Milford, technically.
Yes.
But yeah, no.
So you're
we're-
on Instagram. Well, you've got a personal Facebook. Do you have an Oracle Facebook page?
Yes, I
think
do.
I liked
I
it.
do,
I'm pretty
yeah.
sure I'm already following.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot, but it's
Well, so again, it's been a year. What is it that you think my listeners, if any of my listeners are interested in starting a business of their own, what advice would you give them or lookouts to, that they may not think that would be an issue, starting out?
I mean, I can really only speak for this kind of business.
Yeah.
And really it's just, at least for the mushroom farm business, it takes a little while to kind of fine tune things and get things to be consistent. So really just research as much as you can. It'll save you like a lot of headache. But I'm also kind of realizing like that, I mean, I had a stonemasonry business at one point years ago. And like, yeah, like I enjoyed it. I was good at it. But like to say I was passionate about it, I don't know that I can say that.
Yeah.
But I'm realizing that like what's kind of happened here is I really migrated more towards my passion, and then the rest kind of followed. So that's what makes the 16, 17-hour days work, is that it's something that I really love doing. And
Yeah.
it's something that I can stand behind. Even my last industrial chemistry job, nothing against them, but it was making, fragrances and flavorings for these other companies. And yeah, the chemistry is interesting, but I don't have any stake in the game at that point.
Sure.
I'm not like, oh, I'm really passionate about flavorings and fragrances. Like, I'm not.
Right.
Whereas this, it allows me to kind of really focus on what I am passionate about and what I believe in. And that has made the growing pains worth it.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, the amount of stress that I'm under constantly is way more than I've ever been under. But the thing that keeps me going is the fact that I really enjoy this and I really stand behind it. And I really want other people to enjoy it like that.
Well, and clearly they are, because
Yeah.
you're, like you said, you're growing in leaps and bounds, and the business is consistent as far as your clientele, and they just want more.
Yeah.
So that's got to feel really good. Again,
Yeah.
not that you ever can take
Well,
the
it
time to
is-
appreciate it, but
Yeah,
but that's got to feel really good.
Yeah, but I do. There is this kind of level of validation that I do get from some of my clients. Sometimes, even Sparrow, who's doing this, amazing mushroom dinner coming up, and I had no idea. They were just like, "Oh, we're doing this dinner, and it's all your mushrooms," and I'm like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Awesome."
Yeah.
Like, I'm humbled by this, but it's really people are really enthusiastically jumping on board with it.
That's awesome.
And like honestly, even with the farmers markets, I don't necessarily need to do the farmers markets, but that's the part I think that's going to really. The part that really helps me keep going is to seeing the look on people's faces when they see the mushrooms.
Sure.
Because they're blown away. Like most people have never seen mushrooms like this,
Well, yeah.
other than like online or something.
Yeah, the couple pictures that you've put up, and I'm like, okay, I wouldn't know where to find it. I wouldn't know
Yeah.
that was edible. I wouldn't, you know what I mean? So it's been really cool to kind of learn through you
Yeah.
a little bit. And I couldn't tell you what a chicken of the woods tastes like. I couldn't
It
tell you
tastes
what
like
a
chicken,
lion's
actually.
head could taste, lion's mane tastes like.
Yeah.
So it has piqued my curiosity.
Yeah.
So I would like to try them eventually, but I also don't cook, so that's a whole thing too.
Well, there are plenty of restaurants around that are cooking with them.
apparently so.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic.
Yeah, it allows me to kind of connect with directly with the consumer because
Yeah.
even when I sell the markets or to restaurants, they're selling them in their own way to the customer, and I don't ever get to actually have that exchange.
Right.
Whereas this, people can ask me questions. One of the most common questions I get is, "Well, this is awesome. I'm really excited to have like lion's mane, but how do I cook this?"
Right, yeah.
And it's, at that point, like I can kind of at least tell them, my experience
You could
with
come
it.
out with a cookbook.
We've thought about it, but like cookbooks are kind of like a dying breed kind of thing. But
I mean,
we've
Just don't be one of those like online where like you have to like don't give your life story before they get to the recipe.
I hate that.
Jesus
I hate that so
Christ,
much.
what are we doing? Just tell me how to make this thing.
We've even thought about just doing some cards or pamphlets or something that have some
Or
basic
that's
recipes.
good for the gram too, like a little quick little like montage, cooking montage or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And when people kind of get our mushrooms and they take them home and cook them and send us pictures and the recipe, then we'll post that also.
Are you on TikTok? You got to get on TikTok.
I mean,
When you move the plate.
yeah,
not now,
I'm not really. As the business, no, I'm not on TikTok. No.
You need a social media person.
I do. I need a person for all of this stuff.
It's wild.
Yeah, even just the social media aspect is like a full-time job.
It's a whole other animal. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
That's so
cool.
exciting.
Yep.
Well, Spencer, Oracle Mushroom Company, right here in New Milford, Connecticut.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us. Of
course, my pleasure.
Hope y'all learned some things. Check out the. Who knew the mushroom game was so crazy? I'm learning. This was Try Not to Curse Gang, and we will catch you next time.